Hello and welcome to On the Bench, the only sports discussion show for the Lincolnshire and Humber region, right here on Estuary TV. I'm Rob Underwood. On the show this week, we'll be taking a look at some of the big news stories from the world of sport and asking our studio guests to give us their opinions on the stories that have been hitting the headlines. In the studio tonight, we're delighted to be joined once again by Grimsby Town legend Dave Boylen, and alongside him, another familiar face for Mariners fans, Matt Bloomer. Welcome to the studio, gentlemen.
Thank you.
First of all, Matt, sporting a very impressive scar there above your eye.
Thank you.
Where did you get that from?
We had a game away at Telford about 3 weeks back. After about 16 minutes, a clash of heads with my own player, believe it or not.
Yeah, and fresh from a breathless fight back at Boston United at the weekend as well, 3-3.
Yeah, it was a great result, you know, one that we needed. We've had a few bad results lately, and 3-0 down at half-time, and to nick a point, we're absolutely delighted. Mid-table
now, how do you see, although it's early days of course, how do you see the season panning out?
We've got a good chance, you know, we had a good start to the season, a few bad results followed, but we've looked good in the games. We've just not taken our chances, and we brought 1 or 2 in. If we start putting the ball away, I think we'll be there or thereabouts.
A good start for the lad on loan from Grimsby at the weekend as well.
Very good, yeah, he looked really sharp, and of course scored the penalty that got us the point, so pleased for him.
Splendid. Dave, what have you been up to? Good to see you back since we saw you last.
Yes, I'm very pleased to be here.
Thanks for joining us on the bench. We'll be back with you shortly. Well, also on the show this evening, Tom and Stu will be bringing you a special edition of A View from the Estuary, all the way from the home of the Imps, Lincoln City. And Matt Denson has been along to Chequered Flag Go-Karting in New Waltham, where he was met with a surprise challenge from a familiar face. Stay tuned to find out more. But first, I think we all breathed a sigh of relief, didn't we, last Tuesday, as Roy Hodgson's men safely saw off Poland with a 2-0 win to book our place at the World Cup in Rio. Did you watch the game, Dave?
Yes, I did.
Silly question, I guess. Did you?
Yes, I did. Yes, it was. In my opinion, I thought it was a collection of experience with younger players, which I love to see in any team, the national team especially. I was dead impressed with Gerrard, and when Lampard came and also put his experience to it, I think we deserved the win, and I'm pleased we did win. 2 teams that had to be beaten, Matt. Yes.
In quick succession, really.
You know, there's no easy games at international level now, and obviously we've managed to go through the group stage unbeaten and qualified, which is great. And you've got to beat what is put out in front of you, and excited about the future for them.
What about the style of football that Roy Hodgson is playing?
I think it's not cavalier, but there's some excitement in there, isn't there? There's some good young guys coming through, and like Dave said, mixed that with the experience that we've got in the team as well, and free up those young guys to go and express themselves. It's looking exciting.
But I suppose the danger is, Dave, about getting too carried away with all this. Yes, we've qualified. Just how good is this England side, do you think?
Well, everybody always expects England to actually win the World Cup every time we qualify. But when was it that we won the World Cup the last time? It was 1966. We've got to build these teams up. We've got to get them together, you know. And I honestly think that we'll be going to Brazil, not as favourites. We'll be one of the underdogs. And I think that'll be good for the younger players and the experienced lads. Maybe show their ability and their experience that they've had, and to help these younger ones through it. I'm really excited about the World Cup.
Just shows how important the media can be, doesn't it, Matt,
yeah.
Really? Before we went into the 2 games, all the talk was about Joe Hart and his possible frailties. We come out of it, all the talk's about Andros Townsend. How good is this guy?
Well, it's early days, isn't it? But he looks very good, and he's the kind of person you want to go on, and he'll be the hope, won't he? I think the key is not to put too much pressure on him, because we've seen it all before, where you build all your hopes on one player, and you know, at the end of the day, it's a team game, isn't it? But he's definitely looking good.
And as we go forward, Dave, just coming back to what you were saying there, what sort of shape and team do you think the England team will take as we get closer to the finals?
Well, I think that he'll be looking to be playing football, to knocking the ball about, keeping possession, and he'll be looking for midfield players to get forward. And Rooney, to me, seems to be in another stature when he plays. You know what I mean? He inspires confidence to the rest of them. He's not playing with a chip on his shoulder. Sometimes I think he does, even though he's a fantastic player, you know. And he's a controversial person, isn't he?
And the half-time team talk again. Are we in danger of that maybe overshadowing the euphoria of the whole thing?
Well,
Matt, what do you feel?
I think it's been blown out of all proportion, you know. I mean, racism is a serious issue, but like Townsend said, there was no offence meant by it. It was said innocently, and it's a shame that something like that should overshadow the performance and us getting to the World Cup.
But we're looking in good shape.
Well, I think we're in great shape. And just one little word on that. Well, at half-time, the dressing room is between the players and the manager. And how that got out, I do not know.
Okay. One to be talked about for a lot longer, I'm sure. Well, only another 230 days or so to wait until kick-off at Rio 2014. Plenty of time to get our hopes up yet. Next up on the show, Tom and Stu have been back out on the road, and this time they headed down the A46 to the home of Lincoln City for a special view from the estuary, direct from Sincil Bank. Take a look at this.
Hello. Today we are at Sincil Bank, the home of Lincoln City Football Club, for today's View from the Estuary. Would you pick either Andros Townsend or Theo Walcott as first choice right midfield? Andros Townsend, although the media have kind of hyped him up like they did Januzaj after just one game, he has shown in the last two qualifiers that he can step up to the mark for England and do well. It might be a good backup for Theo Walcott. You just want a bit of experience at the World Cups, and then if something does happen, maybe for the last 10 minutes, just bed him in, ready for the next tournament, the Euros, or maybe even Russia 2018.
Yeah, both players have different abilities that you have to take into account. Yeah. They are similar players, but they're not exactly the same. Theo Walcott is more of a direct runner down the wing. Obviously, Townsend's goal for England came through the centre of midfield, so he brings that sort of to the plate. There is other players as well that could bring competition to that right-hand side. James Milner could play on the right-hand side, I'm sure. For the other young players as well, you've got to look at Sterling, Ward-Prowse, Ravel Morrison. He's having a blinding season over at Upton Park for West Ham. He might be able to sneak onto the plane for Brazil. Do you agree with the seeding for World Cup and European tournaments? I do agree to some extent. I can see why teams are seeded, obviously through past qualification and how many times you've appeared at World Cups. The qualifiers, I think, should be more seeded though than the actual finals. The finals, free-for-all. I'd like to see the finals as you've made the World Cup finals, you've been through the qualifiers, you've got here. Now it's luck of the draw, and then it's down to ability. The best teams are going to play each other at some point anyway, so it would be nice to see maybe a few early rounds of the best sides, and then it's literally down to ability. So if you win a World Cup when it's not seeded, you know you have beaten maybe 3 of the best sides in the world.
Totally agree with you on the qualifying situation. Andorra, San Marino, I've got more followers on Twitter than what turn up to their home games. Just draw whoever out into the group. It'll be good to see England, Brazil, Argentina and Germany all in the same group. That would be a great group, and then as you say, as it moves on, then you know that we've actually beaten decent teams to get to the final. Is it right for Mo Farah to say he might not compete at Glasgow 2014 to concentrate on running the London Marathon? It's also not wrong. It's his own decision. If he wants to try and win the London Marathon, it's something that he's obviously set his heart to do. He's already got gold medals in the Olympics. Maybe he's trying to keep himself fresh for the next Olympics in Rio.
He's not breaking any rules. If he wants to do that, by all means let him do that. If he's got a training regime in place where it means missing the Commonwealth Games and he's getting ready for the London Marathon, then let him do that. There's no rules against it. He's not upsetting anyone else by doing that. He might lose a few sponsorship money along the way if he's dropping out of this sort of competition. But let's face it, who's going to stop him? It'll take a while to catch him.
Well, that's it from us for this week. Thank you to Lincoln City Football Club for having us. If you have a question for us, you can get in contact on Twitter at @AskEstuary.
Thanks, Tom and Stu. Join us. We'll be back shortly for more discussion. Welcome back to the show. Now, it was reported last week that Manchester United are looking into the viability of introducing a safe standing area at Old Trafford. Are we looking at the possibility of a return to terraces at our grounds? Dave, what's your reaction to this?
Well, being brought up as a supporter of Manchester City and standing and watching the game stood up, even though I'm only 5'3" midget, I'd welcome it back. I mean, I really would, but I hope they get the health and safety issue into place and that it is really looked after. But I think it's fantastic that they're even thinking about it.
Defining moment, of course, Hillsborough.
Exactly.
Still very much in the minds of many, the 96. It seems inconceivable, Matt, that we could be looking at a return, but just how special is it as a player to be attacking a goal and seeing standing fans behind that goal?
Yeah, you know, I've been lucky enough to do both, be a player and, you know, be in the stand. I remember at Blundell Park in the atmosphere. It's fantastic. I think in light of the recent findings with Hillsborough, I think it's a little bit early to be discussing it, but it's definitely a better atmosphere, and like Dave says, if it's done safely and correctly, then I think it's open for discussion. Aston
Villa, Cardiff, Hull City, Sunderland amongst others supporting the idea. Do you think Liverpool could ever be seen to be behind something like this?
Well, I think that's very sensitive there, isn't it? You know what I mean? Because of what happened with their supporters. But I think, you know, clubs, especially in the lower divisions, I think there's no trouble there, because I do believe that, you know, you don't get the 40,000, 30,000 people watching, and sometimes it is a waste when it's all seated. The grounds, all right, they look good and everything, but it's great to have that atmosphere, like we've just described, where you know, you're attacking the pontoon. And we used to always say that the pontoon was like one goal ahead for us. You know, the atmosphere was fantastic in my era.
I suppose it could be said now, even with seated grounds, you've still got a degree of a chunk of the crowd that will always stand no matter what.
Yeah, they do. And another way, look, it might actually make it more affordable for people to access games as well, which, you know, increases crowds and revenue. And
how much is the risk, do you feel? Who'd be brave enough to do it?
Well, I think if it did get passed, I think there'd be quite a few teams really who'll kick it off. But like I say, you've got to have the safety, you've got to have the health and safety there.
And the stewarding as well. I mean, that's another issue,
exactly,
isn't it?
Exactly, yeah. But you see, a lot of the stewards, you know, are very well organised, you know, they really are, you know, and it's when you play. I remember when we played Millwall years ago, and everybody knew that there was going to be trouble. But I think them days have gone. I don't think it's like how it was in the 60s, 70s, early 80s.
An interesting one, that one, sure to divide opinion amongst local fans. Now, we'd love to know what you think. So if you'd like to get in touch, you can tweet us in the studio at On The Bench TV. Well, next up on the show, Matt Denson headed down to Chequered Flag Go-Karting in Holton-le-Clay to take a few laps around the track. Little did he know that we sent down a little competitor to challenge him once he got there. Take a look at this.
So I'm here, go-karting, Holton-le-Clay, just outside of Grimsby, where I'm led to believe there's 700 metres of track with 270cc of go-kart I'm going to be using today, and I understand I've got a bit of a challenge. Now I hope it's not one of the 7 nationals that's raced here, but we'll find out. Let's see how we get on. Now you must be Steve.
All right, Matt, welcome to Chequered Flag.
Thank you very much, thank you for having me. Now I've come to see you for some pointers, a bit of advice, and what do I need to do out there on your go-karting track?
Go as fast as you can, basically.
Okay.
Go as fast as you can without crashing.
Have you got any little tips that might just help me?
Like I say, be as smooth as you can. Don't try and go around the corners too fast, basically.
Now I understand you've got some of the area's most powerful cars, is that right?
We're the fastest in the area. We've got I believe we've got the biggest engines in the area. There's competitors that use 200cc cars. We use 270s.
Now, one thing I need to know is bin lighter an advantage?
Not when it's raining.
Ah, good day to come.
There's a bit of luck for you.
Yeah. Sorry? You're trying to say something, Steve?
Yeah, obviously, with them being 4-stroke, lighter is an advantage normally, not so much in the rain. It sorts the drivers out in the rain. Great
Steve,
fun.
thank you very much. Thanks for your help, and let's see
problem.
if it pays off.
Have some fun.
Thanks, Steve.
See you
Bye.
later.
You?
Yes, me.
This is going to be fun.
Indeed.
I wasn't expecting you.
Really?
Yeah, really.
Don't think Rob's the driving type.
No, probably not, but I wasn't expecting you. I was expecting a
Okay.
challenge.
That's a bit unfair. Bet you're nervous.
No,
Driving against a girl, what if you lose?
I won't.
Really? You seem a bit confident. You must have had some tips.
I've had some good inside tips.
Have you?
Yes.
That's all right then. So do you know these get up to 45 miles an hour then?
Really?
Yeah.
What was it like to be beaten?
Sucks really.
Does it?
Yeah.
Can you say that?
A little bit.
Okay.
I have done.
Good effort from Rach there. Looked like a close race, didn't it? And a good place for a day out. Well, just before we go, we've got just a couple of questions from our viewers for our guests in the studio. Firstly, one for you, Dave. Do you think the town fans are too quick to turn on the fortunes of the club after a good run of results? Everyone got behind the club, but a more recent run of losses, admittedly still top 5, has seen people turn again? What's your take on that?
What it is, it's a frustration by the supporters. We've gone down from league football into non-league football, and they've really given it a go to get behind the club at the start of the season, hoping for big things. And we've had a managerial change, but the new one, Paul Hurst, who's acting manager, he's trying to put his way into the team, and we've had a couple of dodgy results, but we're still in the top 5. We came back on Saturday, and the supporters, we plead with them to be patient, because Grimsby Town need the supporters. They need to get behind the club, and they need to support the club in every single way. And people might say, well, it's frustrating when they get beat by it, but that's going to happen, right? But we've got to make sure that we keep the same continuous team that wins on a Saturday. Let's get near enough to it, providing injuries have not incurred, and play the same team on the following Tuesday or Saturday.
Continuity, get behind the Mariners. And Matt, one for you as well. Tell us a bit about your current role at the Grimsby Institute. You're a big supporter, of course, of encouraging young people in sport.
Yeah, definitely. I was lucky enough to be in sport all my life, so my job role here now is called a college sports maker. It's a joint project with Sport England and the colleges, local FE colleges, and it is to encourage people to participate and show them the power of sport, what it can bring, and get them volunteering in sport and running sport for the local community as well. And give everybody the chance to access sport, because there's plenty of barriers that stop us doing it. So it's kind of, it's my job to help break down those barriers.
Well, that's all we've got time for this week. Thanks to our guests Dave Boylen and Matt Bloomer, and a special thanks to you for watching. We'll see you again next week for On the Bench.